My brother didn't book a room for me on our family trip? My brother Jake sneered. We reserved rooms for me, my wife, and my child. We're the real family. I calmly responded, then I'll leave, and walked out. Hours later, after ignoring dozens of their calls, something unthinkable happened. Edie calmly responded, then I'll leave, and walked out. Hours later, after ignoring dozens of their calls, something unthinkable happened on Thanksgiving morning. As I woke up in my New York City apartment, the familiar anxiety crept into my chest. Another year, another family reunion. This year, the venue was the Westward, a luxurious resort hotel in Malibu, California. It was our yearly family outing. And as usual, all expenses were being borne by my grandfather, Howard Carter. As I gave a final check to my suitcase, I exhaled heavily. I looked at myself in the mirror. My name is Nathan Carter and I'm 35 years old. I'm a research director. I earn $130,000 per year. I stay alone in New York. I have been steadily building my assets through well-thought-out investments. Money is important, but dignity is something even more precious. I remembered what my grandfather said. He is a successful businessman who made his fortune in real estate development. Everything about financial management, I learned from him since childhood. He taught me with great enthusiasm about investments and asset management. He is the only one in the family who truly understands me. And then there is my brother Jake, a former airline pilot who became a full-time husband. He leads an apparently affluent life with his wife and 7-year-old daughter, Emily. But this lifestyle wouldn't be possible without monthly support from our grandfather. Their high mortgage payments, car loans, and their daughter's private school tuition, everything is covered by grandfather's assistance. Still, Jake's social media is flooded with glamorous posts, new designer watches, dinners at expensive restaurants, luxurious vacations. He seems fixated on showing a life that is far from real. My parents, Richard and Susan Carter, are no different. They seem to be enjoying their retirement life in Florida, but that too would not be possible without the support of grandfather. Their retirement fund, the deposit for the high-end retirement home, everything is based on grandfather. My parents have always been cold toward me, but indulgent with Jake. That hasn't changed since childhood. I covered my tuition with scholarships and my living expenses by part-time jobs while I was in college. Meanwhile, my brother depended on our parents for everything. Study abroad expenses and living costs included. The contrast still hurts to remember. Become someone who can stand on their own feet. That is another of grandfather's sayings. I have really lived by these words, studying and working desperately so as not to be dependent. I made my career in the pharmaceutical industry, developed my assets, and built a life that needs no one's support. The high-rise apartment looking out over New York's skyline was achieved by my hand. The moderate luxury in my life within my means, that is the life chosen. Lifting up my suitcase, the anxiety for this year's Thanksgiving was slowly growing. Every year, the distorted relationships in our family only intensified. My brother's preoccupation with superficiality, my parents' preferential love, and the anxious eyes of grandfather on the way to the airport in the taxi. I thought about this year's trip. The Westward was a 5-star internationally renowned hotel built in 1982. It was an Italian Renaissance building with suites over $900 per night. The special dinner for Thanksgiving was said to be over $300 per head. But against that glittering backdrop, the reality of our family was fragile and distorted. My brother's high-rolling lifestyle, my parents' comfortable retirement, all castles built on the sand of grandfather's support. And this year those distortions were about to reach their breaking point. Of course, everyone must have noticed, yet no one dared to speak of the reality that now awaited us. Through the taxi window from Los Angeles International Airport to the Westward, California's gentle sunlight streamed in. On Thanksgiving Day, under a pleasant weather condition, I arrived at this luxury resort. I was the last to arrive. Pulling my navy Rimowa suitcase, I stepped into the Italian Renaissance-styled magnificent building. My simple yet elegant theory suit had slightly wrinkled during the long flight. The lobby spread out as a clean, dignified space. Above, crystal chandeliers glittered, and beneath, footsteps whispered softly on the marble floor. Other guests were already spending their Thanksgiving afternoon in their ways. On my way to the reception desk, I saw my parents. They seemed to be talking about something in a corner of the lobby. My mother Susan was wearing what looked like a new resort dress, while my father Richard was casually dressed, appropriate for his age. Our eyes met, then darted away. "Mr. Carter, I apologize, but I don't seem to find your reservation." The tone at the desk was apologetic. She continued to tap onto the screen, furrowing her brow. "I have all of the reservations for your family, except," I heard the clink-clink of high-priced heels. I turned and found Jake striding toward us in a triumphant grin, Hermes Birkin bag hanging on his wife's arm and a Cartier gleaming on his hand. "Oh, finally Nathan showed up," he said with sarcasm laced into the tone of his voice. The receptionist continued to check the system. Other guests started to glance toward us. How queer, there is no reservation. Jake's voice rose in decibel, precisely calculated to show the attention to the people present around him. His Louis Vuitton baggage was strikingly contrasting next to my dark-colored case. Actually, Jake stepped closer, a triumphant smile on his face. I only made reservations for our family. His voice echoed in the lobby. He continued, heavy with sarcasm. A room for me, my wife, and my daughter. And one for mom and dad. Just for the real family, you see. There was a moment of silence. The front desk staff stood agape. And our parents turned their backs even further away. The air around me solidified in an instant with a slow, deep breath. I spoke with my face still expressionless. I see. Then I'll leave. Surprisingly, my tone came out cooler than I thought it would, re-gripping the suitcase handle. I nodded politely to the front desk staff, taking out my smartphone. I opened the app for calling a taxi. Wait, Jake's voice rose. But by now I was ready to leave the lobby. I felt the sympathetic stare of the staff at the reception desk, and I began to walk towards the door. My brother looked so surprised at what happened. Yet the triumphant grin just clung on. Our parents were simply standing a bit awkwardly. The quiet lobby only rang with the sound of my footsteps. The afternoon sunlight streamed inside through the main door, dazzlingly bright. Palms danced gently in the refreshing breeze as they waited for the taxi. In a few minutes, the Thanksgiving holiday that I was supposed to spend at this luxury resort was over. But at this very moment, a strange sense of liberation overcame my heart. Grandfather's words came to my mind again. Be a person who can stand on their own feet. Now, I felt I knew what those words meant. In the few minutes waiting for the taxi, I looked at the magnificent exterior of the hotel. The Adams-style building told a story of over 200 years of history, and it was decorated luxuriously for Thanksgiving. Luxury cars kept coming, and well-dressed families stepped out. Through the lobby glass, I was able to make out my niece, Emily, all dressed up in that way too costly of a dress. No child ought to have, fidgety behind her dad, maybe seeking for me. Of course, Thanksgiving dash. The ritual that one of our things we've been performing religiously and also includes getting the gifts, which brings to attention about a pearled hair clip nicely packaged in the suitcase into a taxi Los Angeles International Airport. I was already searching on my smartphone for the next available flight to New York. Though airfares during Thanksgiving are so expensive, I did not really mind that. Rather, this emotional energy that I wasted every year in this season of the year seemed far costlier. In the rearview mirror, the westward building grew smaller, its gleaming form bathed in afternoon sunlight, a monument to our family's superficial glamour. And now the first crack had appeared in that facade. I couldn't predict what would happen next, but one thing was certain: there was no going back. The inside of the taxi was quiet, insulated from the cacophony outside. The air conditioning kept the temperature refreshingly cool, while the high-quality leather seats gradually eased the tension of the night. Outside the window, the particular resort scenery of Malibu flowed by neatly lined palm trees, white luxury homes, and glimpses of the Pacific's sparkling surface. Views that would normally captivate me now felt strangely distant. I pulled out my smartphone and dialed my grandfather's number without hesitation. The ringtone stretched on longer than usual. Finally, he answered. "Nathan, what's wrong?" His voice carried its usual composure. "I have something to report." I began speaking in a matter-of-fact tone. I recounted what had happened at the hotel. No emotions, just facts. How my reservation had been missing, what Jake had said, how I had left in sequence. I could hear the breathing on the other side start to get a little hoarse as grandfather listened to me. He was stifling his anger, but I didn't add words to provoke his sympathy. "I understand. Leave the rest to me." Grandfather's voice was low and heavy. In those few words lay an omen of things to come. Within minutes of hanging up, the calls began to flow in. First, from Jake, over 10 missed calls within a quarter of an hour. Then a message. "Nathan, Emily wants to see you. She was looking forward to our annual Thanksgiving. Can't you think about a child's feelings? My friends come over for dinner tonight. I was planning on posting the perfect family Thanksgiving to Instagram. Do you know how embarrassing it is to explain this situation?" Jake's voice rose higher, hysterical. Between those calls, emails from our parents did start to trickle in. We could have put another room in, but then again, as Jake said, design the house around the real family. My mom's email expressed years of chills. "You are independent now, aren't it? If you can afford it, then why not have another room? With your salary, it shouldn't be a huge deal. What's the emotional high drama for?" Then another from my father went in for an even sharper X. "Jake has a family, a wife and a child. You do know that, don't you? Can't you just keep quiet and bear with it over Thanksgiving? That has always been the problem with you, thinking about no one but yourself and never the family." Next, my mother went on and on, portraying me as the bad guy. "We had plans for social network postings. We were going to take such nice pictures of you and Emily. Now it's all ruined. The feeling within my chest with every and each message read, but by now, those were words heard. Since ever I could remember, my brother and I had been under this kind of discrimination. Then as it neared to the airport, the surging wave received new messages like, because you are selfish, Emily is crying, and also she was planning so long. She had longed to meet uncle in end. He continued to use his daughter as a shield to the very end. All I could perceive behind it was vain and pride. Then followed another of her sarcastic emails from mother. Poor Jake. If you knew how hard he tries to provide for Emily, you wouldn't be so heartless. Desperate as she is about Emily's future, you wouldn't understand. But children's education requires money. Yet, at a time like this I felt no need to reply. If anything, I was grateful that things had come into the open without too much effort on my part. Just before reaching the airport, an email from grandfather arrived. I am proud of your decision. I know everything. A certain warmth welled up in my eyes as I read the message. However, this wasn't because of sadness, but because of quiet determination, a new chapter that had started and would grow big very fast. My smartphone kept on receiving incoming calls relentlessly. Worried messages from Jake attacked my screen. Answer the phone right now. Then, accusatory emails from my parents. Your selfishness is tearing the family apart. But I had reached a place where no one's voice could reach me. Getting out of the taxi, I started to walk towards the international terminal. While booking my flight to New York, I felt a strange sense of freedom. This was the moment of being freed from the false real family. About 30 minutes after boarding, an email from grandfather came in on the New York-bound plane. The recipients listed all the family members. The following is my final decision to be announced. Grandfather's email began as characteristically dignified as he was. Today, on Thanksgiving, an incident occurred which badly wounded our family dignity. Cruel treatment of Nathan, injury to the name of the Carter family, and under no circumstance shall be tolerated. I hereby freeze immediately all financial support given to Richard, Susan, and Jake. Let me remind you that your respective high lifestyles depend on my support entirely. Those who have been blinded by their lives of vanity and pretentiousness and have forgotten what family is all about deserve no more such privilege. Just as I read that, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was Jake again. He must have been in deep need since he was trying to call in every now and then. Nathan, please answer the phone. Convince Grandpa. His voicemails marked his increasing desperation. Needless to say, his life would turn into a nightmare without that amount each month. All his lifestyle had been built on the basis of grandfather's backing. Then came emails from my parents. The conceitedness was all gone and the email was pleadings of desperation. Nathan, this is about our retirement. Can you please talk to your grandfather again? The $150,000 deposit for our reserved luxury retirement home will get forfeited. Our medical insurance subsidies will stop. Their panic was unmistakable. The reality of their retirement security crumbling in an instant had finally hit them. Do something, Nathan. Listen. If it's you, won't he? For the first time, my mother's email contained unfamiliar words. I'm sorry for saying such terrible things earlier, but this is a family crisis. I quietly turned off my smartphone. Through the plane window, a vast sea of clouds stretched across the sky. The perfect family Thanksgiving photos posted every year on social media would not be uploaded this year for Jake. That might be an even bigger blow than the financial impact. The plane flew steadily toward New York without turbulence. The guy next to me was deep in thought, scrolling through some Thanksgiving dinner recipes on his phone. This would have been the time I was presenting Emily with her gift in the lounge bar of a hotel. When I finally got home and onto my Wi-Fi network, my cell exploded in notifications. Over 100 unread messages, most of them from Jake. Their contents grew increasingly panicked. What am I supposed to do? I won't be able to pay the loans. What about Emily's school fees? Emails from my parents too had turned urgent. We might be deprived of getting back retirement home deposit. What to do? Can't sleep over thinking about medical insurance, and most tempting message final notice from grandfather was sent to all in the family. This is something that cannot be undone. Consider this the consequence of your own doing. If you disagree with my decision, I will cut everything off immediately. I quietly read the messages coming in. Their condescending attitude from before was gone, only desperation remained. I had never seen each family member's true self as vividly as in that moment. Putting my smartphone down, I made some tea in the kitchen. By this time, I should have been having their sumptuous Thanksgiving dinner, a $100 special course per person. I remembered that amount and it brought a slight smile to my face. Every year, my brother's family updated their social media status with posts about this delectable dinner. But in fact, they were seldom able to even pay their month-on-month credit card debt. Another call received, this time from Jake's wife. She sounded a little panicked and confused in her voice. Among those were quips about how her husband overspent, and their marriage also seemed to start developing cracks. Then the really desperate appeals started coming from my parents. The retirement home won't refund the $130,000 advance payment. Medical insurance will be self-paid from next month because of your retirement. Even in their begging, they continued to side with Jake even as they blamed me. It was as though they had learnt nothing. Refrigerator. I extracted a lemon and dropped it into my tea tomorrow. The routine work awaited. New research data analysis waited at the pharmaceutical company. $150,000 salary annually. Progressively invested investment trust. A sound foundation of life built through my own efforts. Out the window. New York's night view glimmered. Quiet lights of high-rise buildings are like stars of the city. Suddenly my credit card statement came into mind. Full amount payment per month luxury. I could afford being poor. Zero debt. And the saying by grandfather, vanity is for people, savings are yours in this city. My life was made through my own hard-earned fortune. As grandfather always said, I had become a man who stands on his own 2 feet. And at that moment, I really felt that decision was correct. Incoming calls kept ringing from my smartphone, but they were voices I could no longer hear anymore. 2 weeks since Thanksgiving, early December, the first snow-clad New York pure white. Day after day plunged into work of new projects in the pharmaceutical company's lab. At a time, my family's condition completely changed, with routine unchanged day by day. Social media first provided the initial signs. Jake's Instagram, once updated almost daily, had gone dark. His last post was the day before Thanksgiving. A photo of a Hermes bag at an upscale restaurant tagged with #DreamLifestyle. The caption, "What a wonderful life." Now it sounded painfully ironic. Emails from my father were finally contrite. "I'm reflecting on our years of extravagant living. We spoiled Jake too much and we were cold to you. I'm sorry." Similar messages came from my mother. With their medical insurance subsidies cut off, they were finally realizing how much healthcare really costs. Our pension alone is nowhere near enough. I finally understand how luxuriously we were living. Jake's situation was even more serious. I got an unexpected call from his wife. I found hidden debts he kept secret. I'm in a state of shock looking at credit card bills. We can't afford this life anymore. With grandfather's support suddenly cut off, their facade of affluence was rapidly crumbling. We're considering moving to a cheaper house. Looking at public schools for Emily too. Jake cries every night. His wife's voice was filled with exhaustion and resignation. Even their marriage itself seemed to be in crisis. In contrast, my life remained peaceful. I worked from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and on weekends, I would attend investment study groups, recheck my financial portfolio and continue to live within reasonable means. Just the day before I had been appointed team leader for a new research project, and my salary was bound to increase bit by bit. My investment operation was going without a hitch and I didn't worry about the future. I had always harbored the notion that vanity brought only momentary satisfaction, but savings provided lifelong security. Now, with grandfather's words about their insecure retirement and Jake struggling with mounting debt, I simply went on to lead my ordinary life. Over the last 2 weeks, the desperate calls and emails had slowed to a trickle. Messages that had come in every day now were only coming once or twice a week, their tone changing from angry and denial to quietly resigned. Jake's latest email was brief, but it spoke volumes. "Emily will be transferring to public school. She'll take the school bus." I never thought it would come to this. It was the first indication he was starting to face up to reality. That carefully contrived picture of private school life, once posted hopefully on social media, would never be uploaded again. My parents were also being forced to adapt. They were now seriously considering moving from their luxury Florida community to a more affordable condominium. Medical bills were piling up and the dream of a comfortable, effortless retirement had collapsed overnight. An email from my father was unusually candid. "We have lived with the wrong values for so many years yet." If that realization would indeed change them was a different matter altogether. One night, a short email from grandfather read, "Awakening to the truth of life sometimes brings pain, but it is necessary pain. Your decision gave them an important lesson." I didn't answer. I just saved the message that night while I stared at the New York City skyline. The stars twinkled between the skyscrapers. The city was still the same, always unflinching. So was the life that I had designed. 3 months went by since that Thanksgiving and the early spores of spring began to sprout. Nothing in my life had changed. If anything, it had become more rewarding. The pharmaceutical research project I was leading was going well, and just last week I got word of another promotion. My salary was to increase to $190,000 and my investments continued to grow steadily. I had been standing at the window of my office, my eyes lost to the expanses of the surface of the Hudson. The sun threw a glow over everything, lending a soft newness to it all. The water shimmered. New piles of fresh research data weighed down on my desk, requiring my urgent attentions. These were exciting moments. Any hours spent amidst books and writings pleased me. Days passed and a package came from grandfather. Opening it, There was a single-strand pearl necklace inside. The card enclosed had only one line in that beautiful, flowing script he did so well. True brilliance dwells in those who stand on their own feet. I had kept in touch with my parents since the fallout, but very minimally. They had gone ahead and moved to a smaller home, struggling to keep up with their medical expenses, but they were slowly adjusting. For the first time, my mother's emails carried a different tone. Luxury brings momentary joy, but there is real security in living a grounded life. Jake and his family had also moved to a modest suburban neighborhood. Emily had adjusted to public school and was now catching the bus to school every morning. Jake's once very active social media accounts had grown silent. In one of his few messages to me, he wrote, "It all seems so vain now, posting just to keep up appearances." Now, days for him were filled with struggles to keep up the credit card payments. His marriage was still strained, but at least they no longer were pretending to live a life that they could not afford. I had started setting new goals for myself, such as building a stronger career in pharmaceutical research and one day leading my own team. I could just envision mentoring young researchers and teaching them some of the things that I learned. Holidays allowed me to study investment and economics with a study group. The company during holidays also put me among people living steady, no-nonsense lives. The conversations were real, void of pretentiousness and vanity, refreshing that Thanksgiving had taught each of us at least something great. The worth of financial freedom, the hollowness in image-based lifestyles, and most importantly, the essence of a family. The last words of grandfather still rang in my head. Real bonding is only possible after overcoming hardships. Inside my desk drawer, the pearl hair clip that I had bought for Emily was sitting, still encased in unopened packaging. It would be worth giving to her someday when she is old enough to understand that pride comes from an independent soul, and when she would understand that a like somewhere on social media does not bring any respect. Outside my window, a gentle spring wind stirred the trees as if to announce to me in whispering tones the arrival of the season. Bye-bye.